They told stories of men only to frighten children. A relic of a violent past. A myth. A mistake. So when Callan Voss opened his eyes to a sky of violet haze and bioluminescent treetops swaying above, he did not yet know that his very existence would unravel the fabric of an entire world. Pain throbbed through his ribs as he lay half buried in a pile of glowing moss, the twisted wreckage of his shuttle smoking behind him. Sparks danced across its hull like dying fireflies. The crash had torn through several layers of canopy, leaving a wound in a jungle that steamed and crackled. His suit was torn, helmet cracked, and one boot missing. Blood, dry, flaky, clung to his temple. He coughed, sat up slowly, and felt the sickening sway of a possible concussion. Then came the sound, not animal, not machine, something in between. A series of mechanical clicks followed by a low growl. Callan froze. From the underbrush emerged a grotesque figure, tall, hunched, with limbs of rusted steel and patches of flesh like discarded meat. One eye glowed red, scanning. The other was a hollow socket. It raised a weapon grown from its forearm, part bone, part cannon, and shrieked. Callan rolled aside just as the blast shattered the trunk of a nearby tree. He scrambled for cover, breath ragged, instincts kicking in. He'd fought insurgents, pirates, things worse. But never, whatever this was. He ducked behind the wreckage, ripping free a jagged panel of alloy. As the creature charged, he met it head-on, slamming the metal into its face. Sparks flew. It staggered. He kicked it back and grabbed a loose pipe from the ground, swinging wide. The fight was brutal, primal. The creature's blood hissed when it touched air. When it finally collapsed, twitching, Callan stood over it, bruised, panting, alive. His moment of victory was brief. A soft cry reached his ears. Not mechanical. Human. He turned. A young woman had been hiding beneath a thicket of fern-like leaves, her pale violet skin glowing faintly under the forest light. Her eyes were wide, golden, terrified. Callan lowered his weapon. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't run. Instead, she stared at him as if seeing something impossible. He took a step closer. She flinched, but didn't flee. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice hoarse. She nodded slowly, then whispered something in a language he didn't understand. It sounded like a question. He gestured to himself. "Callan. Callan Voss." Her gaze flicked down his body, to his bare arm, the torn sleeve, the exposed patch of skin. Then she gasped. A sharp intake of breath. A step back. Her eyes darted to a device on her wrist. She pressed it. A chime rang out. Callan frowned. "Hey, wait, what are you doing?" She backed away, panic rising in her voice as she spoke rapidly into the device. Then came one word in English, perfectly pronounced, filled with horror. "Y chromosome." Callan's stomach sank. Shit. From the sky, something roared. He looked up. Sleek, black shapes were descending through the canopy. Dropships. Armed. Fast. The girl looked at him one last time, not with gratitude, but with betrayal, and ran. And Callan Voss, last man standing on a planet that had forgotten men ever existed, ran too. Behind him, the forest exploded with light and gunfire. The hunt had begun. The grand chamber of the High Matrons rose like a crown above the capital spires of Serindra. It was a place of polished stone and glass-veined crystal, suspended on pillars of anti-gravity tech, glowing faintly with the pulse of the planet itself. Inside, beneath a dome shaped like the iris of a colossal eye, 12 matrons sat encircled in judgment. At their center, High Matron Cilia stood tall, robed in black and crimson. Her voice cut the air like a blade. The Y chromosome anomaly has been confirmed. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Some matrons leaned forward. Others recoiled. Cilia raised her hand for silence. We have not seen such genetic corruption in 3 millennia. The records are clear: where men walk, peace dies. Where their seed spreads, war follows. This cannot be chance, said Matron Saloon. An incursion? Sabotage? Cilia's gaze swept the room. Whatever the method, the result is unacceptable. He must be eliminated before he pollutes the balance. A hollow image flickered above the floor. Callan Voss, captured mid-run, jungle mist swirling around him. A label beneath read, genetic threat, type Y. Orders were given. The hunt began. Far below the capital's crystalline towers, the underbelly of Serindra festered, a labyrinth of rusted pipes, glowing graffiti, and tech scavengers. Callan stumbled through its alleys, wrapping his wounded arm in torn cloth. His face was streaked with grime, eyes darting at every whisper. No one had helped him. They only stared. Then turned away. His image was already spreading through the info feeds, a ghost, a contamination, a myth come to life. He ducked into a defunct refinery, collapsed beside a stack of old filtration cores. He couldn't run forever. He needed help. That's when she found him. Boots clicked against metal. He turned, and stared down the barrel of a weapon. Violex Soren stood framed by the refinery's broken doorway. Her black battle armor glinted under the flickering lights. Her hair, jet dark and bound in a soldier's tail, shimmered with threads of violet. Get up, she ordered. Callan raised his hands. Look, I don't want trouble. I just crash-landed. I didn't know. I set up. He obeyed, slowly. Her eyes scanned him like a scanner, tactical, efficient, cold. You're bleeding. You'll slow down. Yeah, he muttered. Crashing into a mythological matriarchy does that. Her eyes narrowed. You speak with too much sarcasm for a dying breed. Callan blinked. You're not going to shoot me? She hesitated. That hesitation, barely a flicker, was the only reason he was still breathing. Turn around. Hands behind your head. He did. She stepped closer, scanned his DNA signature from the back of his neck. The device beeped in confirmation, XY, confirmed. She exhaled slowly. Then lowered her weapon. You shouldn't exist. Callan glanced back. And yet, here I am. Silence stretched between them. Finally, she spoke. I can't take you to the surface. The matrons would dissect you before you could finish a sentence. Great. So, prison. No. Her voice was quieter now. There's a place below this city. An archive. Abandoned. Sealed after the purges. You'll hide there until I decide what to do with you. Callan stared. Why are you helping me? I'm not. I'm protecting the balance. You mean the balance that says men are monsters? Her jaw tightened. Don't test me. He didn't. She led him through hidden corridors, past layers of forgotten infrastructure, deeper into the bones of the planet. Above them, the hunt intensified. Drones scanned the skies. Elite units dropped into forests, interrogating travelers. The High Matrons reviewed every update, and Celia watched the footage again and again, the way he looked. The way he moved. The fear in the girl's face when she spoke that single word, Y chromosome. Celia narrowed her eyes. This will not become a legend. Legends give hope. Far beneath the world that condemned him, Callan stepped into darkness. And for the first time, Violix did not know whose side she was truly on. The archive lay beneath layers of forgotten civilization, carved into the very bones of the planet. It had no doors, only conduits, tunnels of smooth, seamless alloy, where lights flickered like dying stars. The air was colder here, heavy with dust and memory. Violix moved ahead, her boots echoing against the ancient floor. Callan followed, limping slightly, eyes scanning the walls where inscriptions danced in languages he didn't recognize. None of this felt artificial, it felt sacred. Where are we? He asked, voice low. Violix didn't look back. The last archive. Sealed after the purges. Few even remember it exists. What was purged? She stopped at a junction, turned to him with something unreadable in her gaze. History. They stepped into a chamber shaped like a spiral seashell, lined with thin data strands webbing across the walls like veins. In the center was a platform, circular, pulsing faintly blue. Stay here, Violix said. Touch nothing. She moved to a panel embedded in the wall, tapping in a code. Lights responded slowly, almost reluctantly, as if the system was waking from a long slumber. Callan stood quietly for a moment, but the room hummed with something familiar. Not in memory, but in feeling. Like standing in a childhood home, long demolished. Against his better judgment, he stepped onto the platform. A pulse rippled outward. The walls lit up. Symbols flickered. Data spiraled like galaxies through the air. Violix turned sharply. What did you do? I didn't mean to. A projection burst to life above them, a three-dimensional map, dotted with glyphs and orbiting moons. A central location pulsed in red. Text appeared beside it, ancient Sarindran, then slowly translated, Zone of Silence. Violix stepped forward, brow furrowed. Impossible. That place was erased. What is it? She hesitated. The Zone of Silence. It was the site of the first betrayal. The last stronghold of male kind. They say it's where the wars began. Where the final truth was buried. Callan watched her carefully. You don't believe that, do you? That men caused the collapse? Violix didn't answer. Her face was unreadable. Instead, she turned back to the map, magnified it. The image zoomed through landscapes, ruined cities, cracked deserts, finally settling on a cratered valley, surrounded by energy fields still faintly active after thousands of years. "You weren't supposed to activate this," she said softly. "This place, it should be myth. Like you." Callan stepped closer. "Maybe myths are just truths someone wanted buried." Violex turned to him. For the first time, her voice wavered. "Do you remember your family?" He blinked, surprised. "Yeah. My mom raised me mostly. Dad was quiet. He used to fix shuttles. We used to go fishing by the orbital dam. There was a dog named Moxie who kept chewing through our solar cables." She stared. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Males don't remember. They don't feel. They don't form attachments. That's what the records said." "Well," Callan said gently, "maybe your records were written by people who needed to believe that." Violex looked away. Her hand trembled slightly as she deactivated the map. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't cold. It was shifting. "They told us you were parasites," she murmured. "That your purpose was conquest. Seduction. That you made women forget who they were. And now..." She looked at him. "Now I don't know what I'm supposed to feel." He stepped closer, voice soft. "You don't have to decide right now." But before either could speak again, an alert shrieked from her wrist. "A perimeter breach. Movement above. Drones closing in." Violex swore under her breath. "We have to move." Callan looked back at the still glowing map. "To the zone." She hesitated only a moment. "Yes." They fled into the tunnels, shadows chasing them. Behind them, the archive dimmed. But somewhere deep within its systems, something had awakened. A pulse. A pattern. A name long erased from history, now blinking back into existence. The storm broke above the catacombs as Violex and Callan emerged from the old access shaft. Rain slicked the fractured stone, washing away centuries of dust. The city above pulsed with alarm, sirens wailing, searchlights sweeping the sky, the hunt accelerating. They didn't speak. They ran. Violex guided him through a labyrinth of alleyways and forgotten maintenance routes, moving with soldier's precision. Callan followed, breath ragged, ribs aching from the fall. Their destination was an old launch bay buried beneath the east spire, a place Violex had once used during covert operations. But someone was already waiting. Zarnavith stepped from the shadows, sleek armor glinting, her short hair damp with rain. Her eyes, bright amber with rings of green, locked onto Violex, then flicked to Callan. Her expression didn't change, but the tension in the air thickened instantly. "You always did walk strange paths, Violex," she said coolly. "But this? A man." Callan halted, shoulders squared. Violex stepped slightly in front of him. "Zarna, move aside. You brought a Y-chrome parasite into the city," Zarna said, voice like silk over steel. "Do you even know what you're doing? He's not what the records say. You think that matters?" Zarna took a step forward, her hand hovering near the weapon on her hip. "You're one of us. Sarindran born. trained to uphold purity. Callan spoke up. You think purity means ignorance? Zarna's eyes snapped to him. I think your voice is a disease. The moment held. Raindrops hissed on metal. Violex's fingers twitched near her sidearm, not yet drawing, but close. Her voice, when it came, was quiet. Zarna, please. And in that single word, not command, not threat, but plea, everything changed. Zarna's face flickered. Pain. Jealousy. Something older. She stepped back. Then tapped the comms node on her gauntlet. A red beacon lit. They'll be here in minutes, she said. I gave you the chance to walk away. She vanished into the shadows. Vilex didn't curse. She didn't panic. She grabbed Callan's arm and pulled him toward the launch bay. A rusted panel groaned open under her override code. They slipped inside, a cavern of metal, dormant ships hanging like skeletons from the ceiling. We don't have long, she said. That woman, she loved you, Callan said quietly. Vilex hesitated. She believed I belonged to the world she knew. Do you? Silence. Then she moved. Fast. Efficient. Activating the manual release on an old scout vessel. It shuddered, lights blinking awake after decades of sleep. Callan climbed in behind her. This thing can fly? Not far, she said. But far enough. The doors behind them boomed. Echoes of boot falls. The clang of approach. Callan strapped in. Vilex powered the engines. Why are you doing this? He asked. She didn't answer at first. Her hands moved over the controls like ritual. Then, because you didn't run when you saw them. You stood your ground. You fought to save a girl who called you a threat. You remember your family. You talk about love like it matters. And maybe it still does. The engines roared. The doors burst open, figures in black, weapons raised. The scout ship screamed through the bay, tore out into the storm. Chased, but not caught. Below, Zarna watched from a broken catwalk. Rain masked her tears. She touched her comms again. He's gone. With her. High Matron Celia's voice replied, calm and cold, then she is no longer one of us. The signal ended. In the sky, the ship vanished into lightning. Inside the cockpit, Vilex gripped the controls hard. Callan sat beside her, watching her carefully. You okay? No, she said. But I know where we're going. Ahead, through the storm, the zone of silence waited. And behind them, a world was already choosing sides. The scout ship limped through the sky, battered by storm winds and chased by silence. Vilex gripped the controls, guiding them past jagged peaks until the clouds broke open, revealing a desolate landscape stretched beneath them. Cracked earth. Fossilized trees. The skeletons of forgotten titans embedded in stone. They were descending into the zone of silence. The ship groaned as it landed, hard. Dust exploded outward. Systems flickered and died. Callan winced as the cabin shuddered, his ribs screaming from impact. Are we still in one piece? He asked. Violix unstrapped herself, scanning the horizon through the fractured windshield. Barely. But this is the place. They stepped out into heat and quiet. No wind. No birds. No hum of insects. Just ancient stillness, so complete it pressed against the skin. What is this place? Callan asked. Violix's voice was low. The place where Surindra was almost undone. They walked across broken plains, through canyons etched with glyphs so old even Violix didn't recognize them. Finally, they reached the heart, a depression in the rock, shaped like a cradle. Inside lay a structure, not built, but grown. Smooth, translucent, pulsing faintly from within. A single orb, half buried. Crystalline, golden, alive. Callan stepped closer. Is that an egg? Violix nodded. Her hand touched a nearby pedestal, waking a long-dead console. Lights bloomed around the structure. Symbols danced across the air. It's a Genesis cell, she said. A living seed from before the cleansing. Formed by dual essence, male and female. Callan crouched beside it. And it's still alive. Dormant. Waiting. As they examined the site, a chittering hiss echoed from a nearby fissure. Violix spun, weapon raised. From the shadows came slithering shapes, parasite drones, their bodies sleek and wet, their eyes glowing blue. Guardians, left behind to protect the sacred chamber. One leapt. Callan tackled Violix aside, taking the full impact. The creature raked across his side, claws tearing flesh. He cried out, drove a knife into its neck, then collapsed. Violix dispatched the rest with brutal precision. The final drone twitched, shrieked, and died. She turned, and saw Callan on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. No, she whispered. She dropped beside him, tearing away his shirt, applying pressure, searching his face. Stay with me. You hear me? Stay. His eyes fluttered. Guess I bought us a minute. Idiot, she breathed. Behind them, the Genesis cell pulsed brighter. Reacting. Violix looked between the egg and the man bleeding in her arms. Her training screamed to preserve purity. Her heart told her purity meant nothing without truth. She stood, approached the pedestal, and placed her palm on the activation glyph. It flared. Then she returned to Callan, lifted his hand, pressed it to the same point. A light burst from the Genesis cell, golden, rising in waves. The orb cracked slowly, not from destruction but awakening. Callan gasped as the energy wrapped around them both, pulling fragments of DNA, weaving threads of memory and possibility. Not invasive. Embracing. Violix held him through it. Let the connection happen. She had been taught that creation through unity was a sin. But what she felt was something older. Sacred. The Genesis cell unfolded like a flower. Inside, a figure began to form, suspended in light, neither boy nor girl, but something new. Its features were blurred, shifting. Its heartbeat strong. Violix watched, breathless. Callan, pale and dizzy, smiled weakly. Is that ours? She looked at him, then back at the being. No. It's not ours. It belongs to the world that comes next. And as the storm faded far above, something new began to breathe beneath the bones of a broken planet. The child did not cry. It floated within a cocoon of golden light, eyes shut, limbs weightless, its skin a shifting hue between bronze and pearl. Violix knelt beside it, transfixed. Callan, still recovering, leaned against a fallen column, his gaze locked on the impossible being they had helped bring into the world. It was not male. Not female. Not entirely human. Not entirely Surindran. And yet, it was undeniably alive. Within minutes, the child opened its eyes. They glowed faintly, not with color, but with awareness. Violix felt a soft pressure in her mind, a pulse, not unlike a distant thought brushing against her own. Callan winced. Did you feel that? Violix nodded slowly. It's speaking to us. Not with words. With something deeper. The being floated upward, as if gravity had not been coded into its existence. It observed the ruins, the ancient glyphs, the sky beyond the crater. Then, gently, it lowered itself to the ground. With each passing moment, its form matured, bone structure stabilizing, eyes deepening, movement more precise. Within hours, it appeared closer to a child of 10. This growth, it's not natural, Violix whispered. Its evolution accelerated, Callan said. Adaptation in real time. Suddenly, the child turned to them, and a wave of emotion passed through both minds, calm, understanding, and something like gratitude. Then fear. Not its own. From above. Violix stood. They found us. High above the crater, storm clouds parted. A dozen sleek black vessels pierced the sky like blades. Their undersides glowed crimson with targeting systems. The lead ship bore the mark of the matrons. In the grand chamber of Surindra, High Matron Cilia watched from a projected feed. Execute Directive 0, she ordered. A matron beside her hesitated. But the genetic data is corruption, Cilia snapped. This is not birth. This is blasphemy. Wipe it out. Wipe them all out. Back in the crater, sirens screamed from the sky. The ground vibrated with the weight of incoming drop ships. Violix turned to Callan. We run. Now. Callan pushed himself to his feet. The child, sensing urgency, followed, silently, swiftly. They fled across jagged terrain, dodging thermal blasts and scanning drones. The ships descended like vultures, releasing squads of armored enforcers. Each one carried weapons tuned to kill at the molecular level. In the chaos, Callan stumbled. Violix turned, caught him. Their eyes locked. There was no time for words, only choices. She gave him her backup blaster. Protect it. Whatever happens. Callan nodded, then looked at the child. You understand us, right? The being blinked once, then placed a hand gently on Callan's shoulder. In that moment, a flood of images, memories, and futures poured into his mind. The child saw everything. It saw war, peace, exile, and something beyond them all. Then it let go. They reached a cave system etched into the cliffside. Violets blasted the entrance closed behind them. Dust filled the air. The outside world howled. Inside, silence reigned again. Violet sank to her knees. We've made ourselves enemies of everything we were born to protect. Callan sat beside her, breathing hard. Maybe what you were born to protect needed to be rewritten. The child stood between them. No fear. No sadness. Just clarity. Outside, the matron forces scoured the valley. Celia herself descended, flanked by elite guards. She stepped into the scorched ruins of the Genesis chamber. Her eyes narrowed at the faint echoes of life energy still shimmering in the stone. They are near, she said. Find them. No survivors. Far beneath the earth, the child placed its hands against the rock. Light surged through the stone, creating pathways that only it could see. Violet watched. It's guiding us. Callan smiled faintly. It was born to. And so, deep in the forgotten roots of a dying world, 3 fugitives, a man, a soldier, and a child of no name, vanished into myth. But in the minds of those who still dreamed of something better, a spark had been lit. A new age had begun. The tunnel opened into a vast subterranean chamber, older than anything Violet had ever seen. Massive pillars stretched into the darkness above, etched with glyphs worn nearly smooth by time. A black obelisk stood in the center, pulsing with a faint blue glow. It was cold, silent, untouched by centuries. The child stepped forward. As soon as its fingers brushed the obelisk's surface, light surged outward. The ground shook. Holograms blinked into existence, layers of spinning code, fractured star maps, and encrypted recordings in dead languages. Callan and Violet shielded their eyes as the chamber ignited with information. Then a voice spoke. Designation, Prime Archive AI, Core Memory Cluster. Requesting authentication. The child looked up. No words spoken. Only thought. And the obelisk responded. Accepted. Memory release in progress. The walls bloomed with light. Histories long buried unfolded like petals, images, sounds, voices. Callan saw faces like his. Men. Laughing, arguing, living. Entire cities where both genders worked side by side. Surindran males weren't monsters. They were citizens. Scientists. Fathers. Then came the edits. Recordings twisted by digital hands. Narratives altered. Entire years erased. What had once been mutual collapse was reframed as male betrayal. And at the center of the manipulation stood a familiar face, young, elegant, and crowned. High Matron Celia. Not always a ruler. Once, a revolutionary. She had helped orchestrate the purge of the male population, not to protect society, but to consolidate power. The data revealed everything: documents, speeches, secret meetings with early council members. The extinction of men was not an act of survival. It was a political maneuver. Violet staggered back, pale. All this time, Callan clenched his fists. They lied to everyone. The child turned toward them. Another wave of thought passed through their minds, not words, but a question. What do we do now? Callan stepped forward, breath steady. We show them the truth. The child nodded. A single tendril of light connected the obelisk to its hand. The data, hundreds of years of memory, began uploading to the planetary broadcast grid. Outside, satellites flickered to life. Screens across Serindra lit up. Streets, homes, government halls, all filled with images of the past that had been buried. The public saw men not as beasts, but as people. They saw the betrayal, the falsified history, the deliberate annihilation of half a civilization. Reactions were instant. Shock, grief, rage. Riots broke out in major sectors. Temples were defaced. Matron statues torn down. Broadcast towers overwhelmed by protest signals. For the first time in centuries, the voice of the people rose above the voice of the council. In the grand chamber, Celia watched with stone-cold silence. The matrons around her panicked. "The truth is destabilizing everything," one gasped. "It wasn't truth," Celia snapped. "It was buried for a reason. The world was cleaner without it." But even she could not stop what had begun. The myth had shattered. Underground, the obelisk faded to black. Its purpose fulfilled. Violex stood in silence, her armor dull in the glow's absence. "They'll hunt us harder now." Callan nodded. But not in silence. Not anymore. The child looked between them, and for the first time, spoke aloud, a voice soft, androgynous, like an echo of many. "The truth is not an attack. It is a seed." Violex smiled faintly. "Then let it grow." And above, under a sky now buzzing with rebellion, something ancient began to awaken, not just technology, but memory. And memory was power. Smoke still rose over the capital when Callan stepped into the light. He was unarmed. Unarmored. Just a man. Violex walked beside him, her armor scratched, eyes wary. Between them, the child moved with calm grace, radiating a soft glow that cut through the ash in the air. They walked slowly through the broken gates of the central plaza, the heart of Serindra's power, now a battlefield waiting to ignite. On one side, the enforcers of the matrons, black-clad and poised for war. On the other, thousands of citizens, no longer silent, holding signs of resistance and makeshift flags bearing symbols of unity, circles intertwined, male and female, and something new. Hover drones buzzed above, broadcasting the standoff to every screen across the planet. High Matron Celia stood atop the grand platform, flanked by her most loyal generals. Her voice echoed through the plaza. "You bring an abomination into our sanctum. An echo of a dead world. Do you come to die, Callan Voss?" He didn't answer. Instead, he knelt. The child stepped forward. It raised both hands, not in defense, not in threat, but in invitation. A pulse rippled through the air. Gentle. Warm. Then it spoke, not aloud, but into every mind. Images, feelings, waves of understanding flowed like sunlight through fog. The crowd saw not monsters, not enemies, but one family. A mother shaped by war. A father once hunted. And a child born of neither and both, a symbol of possibility. The tension cracked. Weapons lowered. Matrons on the front lines faltered, their eyes wide with silent tears. For some, it was the first time they had ever truly felt the truth, unfiltered by fear. Celia snarled. Lies. Illusions. This is not peace, it's subversion. But even her voice could not compete with what the people felt. Violet stepped forward. She removed her gauntlets. Her helmet. Let them see her face. I was born to serve the old ways, she said. Taught that men were disease. That peace required purity. But peace built on erasure is not peace. It's silence. And silence breeds rot. Callan rose beside her. I'm not here to be a savior. Or a symbol. I'm just alive. And I want that to mean something again. Then the child did something no one expected. It took Celia's hand. The High Matron froze. Her body tensed. But she didn't pull away. The child shared something with her, something only she could see. A memory. A moment. Perhaps her own. Perhaps the future. No one knew. Celia's expression cracked. She stepped back. Then turned and walked away. The matrons did not follow. Not all of them. Some dropped their weapons. Others simply sat down, stunned. A long, deep silence fell over the plaza. Then, cheers. Not of victory, but of release. The city breathed for the first time in generations. Weeks passed. The council fractured. Then reformed. Not with rulers, but with voices. Diverse. Disagreeing. Honest. The child became a symbol, not worshipped, not possessed, but respected. An ambassador for what could be. It chose to stay behind. To help guide, but not rule. And one morning, beneath the soft twin sunrise, a small transport vessel lifted into the sky. Inside, Callan and Violet sat side by side. No longer fugitives. Just travelers. She looked at him. Where to next? He smiled. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere that still believes in second chances. The ship soared higher, leaving behind a world they had changed. But far beyond Surendra's orbit, in a forgotten system, another signal stirred. A whisper. Another world once silenced. Waiting to remember. And perhaps, to heal.